Hey, bro. Yeah, just chilling here with my cup of mushrooms.
Couple mushrooms, nice.
Yeah, you look like you're freezing a bit. Let me check my internet. Looks all
Okay.
right on my end. How you doing on your end with internet?
I see you. I think I might need to reset mine. Okay.
There we go.
Is that better?
That's better. All right, I'm just gonna switch up the view here so we can see both of us. Cool, got it. Yeah, well, welcome, Waiko, to podcast number 5. It's a it's an honor to have you here, bro.
Sir, appreciate you. Looking forward to just some of the conversations that happen in this podcast and some of the guests you're going to have on in the future.
Yeah, it gets pretty juicy when you have a conversation as opposed to just talking to a camera, which can be kind of it's a bit weird. I don't know, like a lot of people have never tried just talking to a camera for 10 or 20 minutes. It takes a bit of getting used to, but having a conversation, it just feels much more natural. So I think this is the way to go.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
So, bro, obviously we love to talk about our balls on this channel. Tell me, how have your balls been lately?
Sorry, man. Trying to get my setup going here.
All good, bro. Take your time.
Okay. That should work good. Sorry, what was the question?
Yeah, I just asked you, how have your balls been lately?
They've been good, man. They've been good. Full, not hurting. I remember a conversation was happening on your YouTube channel where there was a guy that was saying he was practicing sexual alchemy, but he was getting a lot of blue balls, a lot of tension in his ball sack, and I think that it made me reflect a lot about why that happens and stuff like that. And so it made me reflect a lot on my sexual alchemy journey and just how we get better and better at staying away from that edge kind of thing and
Mm,
getting more and more control and less, I guess, less tempted by the passion, so to speak, less tempted to go all the way. So it was just a reminder for me that, there's progress happening. There's definitely a pathway through this thing.
yeah, so are you saying that the blue balls probably happens when guys are getting too close to the edge?
I believe so. Um, yeah, and I believe that Samael Onweir talks about that too in one of his books. He kind of mentions the path of the razor's edge. It's probably the perfect matrimony, but he talks about that being, you want to stay in the 50 to 70% range arousal. You don't want to go too close to the edge. And it's just been my I think in the early days, I did have a lot of blue balls because of that reason. Like I would just go right up to the edge and just kind of chill back, go right to the edge again. Like, it was that was my game back then. And so, it's more of a dance, man. It's more of a, once the lust leaves, once the lust fades away and it's more of a loving connection, it's so much different.
Mm,
So it's just what we've been training, through porn and all this stuff, man. There's so much we have to rewire.
yeah, I mean, and it's kind of the natural impulse when you're kind of in that lust zone. It's that natural impulse to see how much can I get,
Yep.
how much pleasure can I get, how far can I get to the edge without falling off, and in a way, it's kind of coming from a place of neediness or scarcity or I mean, there's the thrill aspect of it as well. But when you're, I suppose, really grounded in yourself, and like you say, you're focused on the love and the connection more so than trying to get something, you're focused on just connecting with your partner, then you don't need to go all the way up to the edge. You can just enjoy the experience for what it is.
Yeah. Definitely agree. But I know at the beginning for me, like I wasn't even capable of that. I just had this like hardwired way of how I've always had sex, or just how I've always seen sex, and just more of the jackrabbit style of just the get it as fast as you can style. So it really takes a lot of slowing down. It takes a lot of intention, and it takes a lot of I think just being done with the old ways. Just really I think it's something where we have to test test the ways that don't work out, and just know that they're empty before we find this path truly that is a little odd at first, but it is the true path of peace.
Amen. So, what about wet dreams? Because that's been something that's been happening for me too often lately, and I want to know from you: have you been finding that a challenge at all, or have you been cruising through that?
I've been cruising through that pretty good. I'm aware there's probably gonna be a phase that comes up soon, just from what you've been talking about and just relating to different things you've been talking about in your videos, different power levels and stuff like that, and just different things happening physiology wise. Um, but I haven't delved any yet, and so like back in the day when I first got into SR, NoFap, that kind of thing. Those were like a lot of my wet dream days. Like I had a lot back then, but then they kind of just stopped. Probably like 3 or 4 years ago, and I hadn't had any since. And so I don't know. I've heard before that practicing sexual alchemy does have some kind of impact in negating wet dreams. But I think like with what you're going through, I think your energy levels, your power levels just get so intense at a point that that there's just no stopping it. But yeah, so I feel in my spirit, I feel like it's going to be coming, and thanks to what you've been sharing, I feel like I'm prepared for when it does. Because if I hadn't heard of it, I'd be pretty freaked out if I all of a sudden started having wet dreams again, and I had it for like 3-4 years. So, yeah, appreciate what you've been putting out there.
So, how far into your current streak are you?
So I made it to 6 months, and then I released with my wife, and then so I've been back on now. Probably coming back on about a month again, and so yeah, just it's funny you say streak with the quotations, because man, there used to be that end all be all of like my existence, bro. Like what streak am I on, dude? Man, like what current streak am I on? Whose man's am I? But it's just it's just something I think that occurs naturally as you follow the path of SR. Like you just come to a point where you're like, dude, like counting days just kind of puts a little extra like stress and anxiety on me that I don't need, and it's also just a mental trick, So
Yeah.
that's just kind of what I feel like it flows a lot better. I feel like my streaks flow a lot better when I just pay no attention to what day I'm on.
100%. So you released with your wife. Did you get just to that point past 70% and you kind of did you lose control? Did you do it consciously?
It was a loss of control, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
And it had been kind of a thing where for probably the past couple sessions, like it had been really tempting to go there, more so than usual. And it kind of became this thing again. So, it's just something you got to admit to yourself, where you're like, you're slipping, and I was going into lust again, but in my mind, it didn't feel like I was going into lust because I'm with my wife, so, it was hard. But once the relapse happened, and then it's easier for me to be like, okay, it was kind of a little reset. Like, okay, let's just get back on track with sexual alchemy. Like make sure going back to fundamentals, because the ego always creeps back in, so I know for me, being 6 months on a streak, like, you kind of start feeling like you know what you're doing, and it's like, that pride can come in and be like, you start testing the boundaries, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, we start to think we've made it,
Yeah.
and then all hell breaks loose. Yeah, I've been having, the last few. I literally just woke up from one about an hour ago or less, but the last few before this one, there's no dream. I just wake up and I found that I've exploded in my bed, and it's like, what the fuck, man? And then last night, or just short time ago, I was having a dream where I was sitting in a bath, and all these people kept walking in on me in the bath, and it felt very invasive, felt like people were invading on my privacy. And then a woman walked in, an attractive woman, and she just looked at me with this seductive look. And, in that dream state, you're not really always very conscious. You're like semi-conscious, but it's like not all of your consciousness is there. And then she leaned in to kiss me, and I just allowed her to kiss me. Didn't really kiss her back, but as soon as that happened, she kissed me and walked away, and then I just exploded. It's like, oh fuck, man! I just fell for that shit, and then I woke up and I realized, oh, I just kissed a male demon in the ethereal realm. That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Well done, Ben.
Yeah,
But
man.
yeah, it's just like, fuck. Just a sobering reminder that you've got to, the purification just has to run so deep. It has to run all the way to the deepest parts of your subconscious, your unconscious, because any little crack you leave open to lust will just get exploited. One little flame just turns into a forest fire, and then before you know it, you're just cooked, and you're back in the full clutches of lust again. It's such an interesting one, man. Like, I was listening to one of these videos, Teachings of the Wise videos, last night. Occasionally, I indulge in.
Love that channel.
Yeah, I indulge in an AI video. I don't really like supporting AI videos, but occasionally I'll dip my toes in, and that was a good one I watched last night. It was about Jung, and it was about the anima, and how, as men, we feel that inner emptiness within ourselves, which is actually just our disconnection from our own, this is Jung's kind of perspective, our disconnection from our own inner feminine. And so, feeling that emptiness, we project our desire out onto women in the external world, and we seek to fill the emptiness with these women who are external to us. And this seeking to fill the void through the women creates a pressure on them which they feel unconsciously, and it drives them away, and it creates this tension. But if we can come back to a place of rediscovering our shadow, rediscovering the disowned parts of ourselves, all the things that we don't like about ourselves, all the things that we struggle to accept about ourselves, like our own neediness, our own brokenness, our flaws, our feminine side, all these different things. If we can do that inner work of re-owning that, then we lose that lust for the external feminine, and we re-own it within ourselves. And we come to that place of wholeness where, paradoxically, that's when the external feminine becomes so attracted to us, because we don't need anything from them. It's just that old, that old familiar story that we all know about. But it was a good reminder. It was a good video, because it brings it back to, it is an internal journey. It's all internal. And these dreams, having wet dreams, it's just revealing the internal aspect of me that I'm still coming to terms with. I'm still coming to find that wholeness within. So it's a deep journey, man. It's not just about not touching yourself or quitting the corn. It goes all the way.
Yeah, I agree, man. And it's interesting you brought up Carl Jung too. I'm seeing a lot of Carl Jung lately, just on YouTube and just everywhere I'm looking, especially on the AI channels and stuff like that. They're really pushing him right now. But it's cool you mentioned that, because I know there's definitely a lot of shadow work I still need to do. Especially with what Carl Jung describes, it's like the internal, like the mother, the father wounds, stuff like that. Dealing with those kind of stuff. So, but the quotes that have been popping up lately for him, like, that I've really been resonating with, have all been to do with quitting the external search, quitting this search for answers, quitting this search for peace externally, so to speak, and I know in my own life, I began that search at a very young age, to find answers, to find the cure, to find, what is wrong with me, and so, he's, I've a bit of his work I've looked into lately is him talking about how this search is actually the thing that keeps us from finding what we're looking for, and so I know in my own life, the last couple months, I've been slowly trying to put that search to an end and just, and slowly just stepping to a place of just trusting myself more and just, it's interesting what happens when you step into that kind of place. Um, just with subtle peace inside, and just with subtle, I guess, like degradation of anxiety, depression, like that stuff goes down because a lot of that stuff comes up because we're trying to play a character that we're not meant to play, or we're trying to be somebody we're not meant to be, or we're trying to search somewhere that's empty for answers, So that's really cool you brought that up, man.
Yeah. That's what I've found so refreshing about the teachings of the great master Eli Long. I think you're familiar with those teachings as well.
Yes, sir.
It's so refreshing because for most of my life, being on a self-improvement kind of journey, wanting to, as you say, find out what's wrong with me and fix it, I was always looking externally. I was always looking for what I needed to do to be better, what I needed to do to be whole. But coming across that channel and really starting to listen to what he had to say, I realized that, as you say, it's about stopping that search. It's about owning one's own retardation. It's not being ashamed of it. I think that was the biggest thing. I was so ashamed that I had these things about me that seemed retarded. And then I realized, actually, that's my superpower. And I started owning those things more. And it's just like this huge weight gets lifted off you, this huge burden of performance, where you think you have to act a certain way to be acceptable. But then you realize that was all just these external ideas that got planted in your head. And really the path is to accept, just totally accept, totally own everything.
Yeah. And stay away from the mind's narratives, I know for me, like this whole track has brought in the letting go of the mind, and the exactly like Elisha Long says, don't think, just do, that kind of approach. And so it's funny how the mind, the ego creep back in and try to create these narratives for what's going on, because over the past month or so for me, I'm on this track now where like my mind doesn't really know what's going on, and like I'm kind of submitted to the spirit right now in terms of the direction my life is going, and there's not really a whole lot of plans right now. There's not really a whole lot of direction, but I mentioned before that like my spirit is good, my heart's good, my mind is fear. My mind needs this plan, needs this track, and so I know for me, like doing this work, it's just the biggest thing is watching the mind come back in and try to take control again and try to like claim that narrative again. Oh, this is what's going on. This is the path that we're on. Okay, yeah. It's interesting, man.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of the story of Joseph. Joseph was born out in the desert amongst a group of shepherd people, and then at a young age started having these dreams that he was going to be a great ruler, and that his brothers and father and mother were going to bow before him and worship him. And then he started telling his brothers this, and they got really angry at him and threw him in a pit in the desert. And then they sold him to some slave traders who took him to Egypt, where he became the slave of an official. And while he was working in this official's house, a Jezebel hit on him, tried to get him to sleep with her, and he refused. So she accused him of rape, and then he got thrown in prison. He was in prison for like 7 years or something, and while he was in prison, he met these officials of the Pharaoh who got thrown in there for annoying the Pharaoh, and then he interpreted their dreams. And then they got let out of prison, and one of them got executed, as Joseph predicted from his dream. The other one got restored to his position as the king's butler. And then the Pharaoh had a dream one night, which was very disturbing, and he couldn't figure out what it meant. And he asked all his officials, he asked all his magicians, his soothsayers. No one could answer. No one could interpret the Pharaoh's dream. And then the butler remembered, oh, that's right, I was in jail with a guy who interpreted my dream and it came true. He'll be able to interpret the dream. So the Pharaoh summons Joseph and he interprets the Pharaoh's dream accurately, and the dream is predicting that there's going to be 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of famine. And so Joseph says to the Pharaoh, what you got to do is you've got to prepare during the 7 years of plenty. I think we're in the 7 years of plenty now, by the way. And so you got to prepare, and then you got to store up all the grain for the 7 years of famine that are coming. And then you'll be able to feed all the people. No one will perish during the famine. And so the Pharaoh realizes it's true, and he puts Joseph in charge of all of Egypt. He becomes 2IC of Egypt, the most powerful nation in the world. And it's like, if Joseph had tried to figure that out, if Joseph had lived through the mind, trying to figure out how he's going to reach his purpose in life, he would just been flailing out in the desert as a little shepherd, going around in circles. But he surrendered, to the Spirit. He just went with the flow. And even though his life looked like a complete disaster, in the end, there was a little plot twist and he just became the second most powerful man in the world. So it's like, yeah, that trust, man, it's a journey. And it's so counterintuitive, but and it demands that you face your fears. It demands that you face your insecurities, your doubts. It brings you to your knees over and over again, but in the end, you'll come out on top. 100%.
Absolutely. I love you brought that story up. It's one of my favorite stories in the Bible. And I definitely agree, by the way. I believe we're in the 7 years of plenty as well. I believe that we're in a building season for sure. I believe if we build, God's going to bless it right now. But with that story, it just, I've heard a couple of people say this before. I've heard Yash say it before. I've heard a couple of it, but like whatever God has put in us, he's going to make sure it flourishes. He's going to make sure it comes out. I think sometimes as men, and especially if we have a bit of sensitivity, we can see that God's put something in us. So we see that we have a purpose, we see we have some sort of skill, some sort of authority, and we want to take control of that path of how to bring it out and how to sharpen that, how to build that, how to hone that, and then present it to the world, and it's like, but who better than God? Like we try to take over this whole operation with our little minds that can't see, 5 seconds in front of our face. And it's like, God put that in us in the first place, and he's going to take care of it. Why are we taking control like this? So I just love that story in terms of just like you said, like Joseph, he went with the flow. He was retarded,
Yeah. He didn't try and manipulate the situation. He didn't try and scheme or plot. He just seemed to be just getting slapped around by life. But really, God was just molding him.
Yep.
So, for you, I mean, how does that fear show up in your life at the moment? How is that testing showing up in your life, and how are you dealing with it?
Yeah. So, fear has always been my biggest obstacle. Because I've been a big overthinker, fear has just been a big part of my mind, a big part of my life. And my kind of operating system before was always to think things out all the way first before I actually did something, which led to so much inaction because I could always find something wrong. I could always find something that would go wrong. There was always some kind of fear that would come up. And so, and I never understood fear before. I just thought, it was this thing that came up, maybe like a warning sign of danger or something like that. And I just thought if I just push past it, then I got to face my fears and push past it. But I realized that when I did that, the fear never got any less. I would always have the same amount of fear every situation I ran into. And so I've realized recently that it's because every situation I go into, I'm thinking about all the options. I'm thinking about everything, And so this new approach, which is scary, and like the mind absolutely bucks when you start doing this of just doing things and not thinking about it. And like when you feel thoughts come up, you just kind of drop them and just kind of drop back in the body. Like your mind's like, what are you doing? You're being irresponsible. Like, you're in danger. You're not being like, you're not being a man, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there's in your spirit, there's a peace. There's like, okay, there's something else here that's like taking care of me, and you just learn that along the way. And these past few weeks have been such an eye opener for me. I'd mentioned before that, I left my job a couple weeks ago, and I'm on kind of this new path of just whatever God has for me next. And it's been scary, but it's been the most amazing experience because I'm just overriding this fear system that I've always been subscribed to, where I'm like, okay, like I don't even have to like go like face all these fears and like think about all these fears. I just drop the mind completely and trust, and just stay in this connection with God, and the most amazing things happen. And like you said, like it's just this new lease on life where I don't have to like analyze everything anymore. I don't have to play this character. I don't have to like show up in a situation and be ready for if somebody says this or somebody says this, that was me. Like, man, it was so exhausting.
Like
Just
a
to
chess
always
game.
be thinking about every scenario, like trying to be prepared for everything, and still never could be. And just it was wild, man. So now just at more of a space of just showing up for things, showing up and not giving anything a bit of thought before I start doing it. And it's incredible, man. Number one, it's more fresh, but two, God just shows up, man. It's incredible.
It reminds me of Andrew Tate,
Yeah.
because he's really big on chess. And Andrew Tate, I believe, I've got a lot of admiration for him. And on the other hand, I also acknowledge that on a spiritual level, he seems quite stunted.
Yes.
And if you look at his philosophy of life, you look at many of these guys in the hustle culture, their philosophy of life is that life is it's a war, but it's like it's a chess game. It's a strategy chess game. And so, like you say, always planning out, always knowing the strategy, always knowing how you're going to react to a given situation. That's kind of like looking at life like a chess game. And it does keep you in an analytical mode. It does keep you in the mind. And while you might think you're very good at chess, you never really know. There's just too many possibilities to predict all of them. There's always a better chess player than you. So, like you say, man, it is about that surrender and allowing God to show up because God's the maker of the chessboard. Like, he knows all the moves, and I'd rather be guided by that than my own little mind, which has only been learning chess for a very short time. So, yeah, I really relate to what you're saying because most of my life I've been very good at scrounging, as Eli calls it, being a little rat, and like seeking out the cheese, seeking out the opportunity, like chasing the opportunity around the maze. And I was always very good at finding a job if I needed to find a job. I'd do sales, or I'd do laboring, or I'd do any kind of job. I was able to get my foot in the door and sell myself. And that was like my modus operandi for most of my life. And then recently, I've been finding that a lot of opportunities I chase with the carpentry work I do, they just kind of seem to evaporate in front of me. And it's like, what the fuck? I've got this skill. I know I'm good at what I do. And I know people need work done. But more and more, it's like all these opportunities just evaporate. I go and do a quote, and then I just never hear from the person again. And then I started like putting less energy into that. I was like, okay, I'm feeling the energy. I'm not going to invest so much energy into it. So people would call me for a quote, and then I'll just ask them to explain to me via text what their job is. and then I'll just give them a quote over text. Like I wouldn't even get on the phone with them, and then they would accept. They'd be like, oh, because you're telegraphing that you're very busy and that you're important, just like with a woman. You're keeping your distance, and then they want you even more. And so this lady was like, oh yeah, okay, great, we'll hire you. And then I never heard from her again. It's just like, oh, okay, what are you saying, God? So I got to this point where I had an empty calendar for that week, and instead of scrounging, going into rat mode and just like getting really anxious and trying to chase money, I was just like, you know what? I'm sick of being a rat. I'm really, truly sick of being a rat and being a hustler, because it just seems like that's not what God wants me to do. Because if he did, he'd be opening these opportunities, he'd be opening these doors, but that's not what's happening. It's like people are actually starting to run away from me. So, and I always wanted to experience God coming through for me. Maybe this is like a father wound shadow. I always wanted to experience just being able to let go, and then God coming and just taking care of stuff. But I was always too afraid to do that. I never thought I could trust God. I suppose with my own upbringing, I would see my dad getting very stressed over money and always often talking about how there's not enough, often talking about how he's stressed, how he's under pressure. And I always felt like, well, I guess God can't really do it for me. I guess I've got to outwork my problems. I've got to out hustle my problems. But I never wanted to be like that. I always wanted to just live in that peace, like you talk about, live in that guidance, live in that perfect flow. And so it got to the point, this was just a few weeks ago, where I just went out into nature and just surrendered. I just sat there and I just allowed myself to feel the fear of not having enough, feel the fear of not being able to provide, feel the fear of everything going to disaster. And I just started breathing into it, using the breath as a portal into my deeper emotions. That's how we can use the breath. You use it as an access point into your deeper emotions of fear or whatever it may be. And I just started breathing into the fear, feeling it fully embracing it, accepting it, and just started purging, just started releasing this fear. And I did that several times in the following days, just going out into nature, breathing, just sitting there, just accepting the situation, not trying to scrounge my way out of it. And what I found was I just started to feel so much more peaceful, so much more accepting, so much more at ease within myself. Started to let go of this shame around being a man and not having it made. I'm a 33-year-old man, and there's this idea in my head, I should be a millionaire. I should be financially free.
Yeah.
I should be in a position where I own my home and I'm taking amazing care of my family, and everything, all the boxes are ticked, but I'm not. And I just felt, there was just so much shame about that. But I just started accepting it, started accepting the shame, started allowing myself to feel it, started embracing it. And as I did that, it started to dissolve. And it's hard to describe when you've been living under that shame and fear for so long, when it finally starts to dissipate. But it's just like becoming free for the first time. You didn't realize you were a slave under your own fears for such a long time. But when it finally starts to lift, it's like, wow, this is it. This is what it's about.
Yeah. It's such a security, man, because you realize like nobody can do anything to me. Like God's got me, you know what I'm saying? Like there's such it's a security beyond anything human, you know what I'm saying? It's just, it's incredible. And you're like, it doesn't matter what people think of me. It doesn't matter, what I'm saying. It doesn't matter what's going on around me. Like God's going to take care of me. God's going to have me where he wants me to be, no matter what. I will have what I will have what I always need,
Amen.
I always have what I need, kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, man, how do you think that played in, releasing that fear? Do you think that played in to kind of the breakthrough that's been happening this past week? Because, I'm pretty observant, and so I've noticed that within the last couple of days, something shifted in Sons of God, and just some of us in the group, but with you especially, just with YouTube being a big one. Like, man, you've gained like 2K subscribers in like 2 days or something like that. Like, just blowing up big time. Because I just noticed last month, like, it's been happening for me too. Views were down, more negative comments. Kind of a standstill on subs. The Sons of God group, we're kind of losing people and stuff like that. There was just a lot of just shakiness, a lot of just things being shifted. Do you think that release of fear? Let me just broaden the question. What do you think led to that breakthrough? Because, and especially when I interact with you right now, like I just feel breakthrough energy from you, and so I'm just very curious with what happened. And if that's a conversation for another time, that's cool. But I think it just has a lot to do with kind of fear and the breakthrough that's beyond fear.
Yeah. You just get to the point where it just becomes too heavy. Like doing things, relying on yourself, on your small self, relying on the ego, just becomes too heavy. And it's like just acknowledging that you can't figure it out. You can't you're not actually capable in the small self, in the flesh, as it would say in the Bible. And you just come to a point where you just acknowledge that. That's surrender. That's surrender. Realizing that it's bigger than you. The ego is just a pawn in the game. It's just an instrument. It's just a tool. It should not be relied on. And when you can just acknowledge that to yourself, it allows you to let go. It allows you to let go. And that's where you can finally experience the intervention of God. You can finally experience being carried by God, being guided. And that's what I've been experiencing, like money showing up unexpectedly. That was always something I wanted to happen. I studied all this manifestation stuff and I always tried to apply it. I always tried to control reality in some way or another, whether it was through hustling or even through manifestation, through focusing my mind. But the real breakthrough happens when you realize that, as you say, the desires in your heart have been put there by God. So you got to come to the end of yourself. You got to come to the point where you actually just hate being alive. Like Ecclesiastes, Solomon goes on his epic quest of pleasure, experiences all the pleasures of the world, all of the women. Imagine that guy would have had more women lined up than Andrew Tate. He was sleeping with queens. He was sleeping with literal princesses from all around the world. He had hundreds of concubines. Like he went all out, bro. He experienced shit we probably never even seen on porn. And and he got to the point where he actually just hated being alive. He hated life. And I think we need to get to that point in ourselves where it's like, I can't do this. I literally just can't do this. And that's when we have the choice to either kill ourselves or surrender to God, or just keep trying, just come up with a new strategy and try and figure it out. But yeah, I definitely recommend surrender. Surrender has always worked for me.
Yeah. stop playing the hyena, you know?
Yeah.
Man, that was an incredible analogy on one of your last videos, man. The hyena, man. Grind, work hard, play hard. Like, and man, I was dying when I heard you talking about that. It makes so much sense, dude. You know, and yeah, and just yeah, it made a lot of sense.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's where it's at for me, man. And yeah, the unknown, the not knowing, that's where the magic happens. So,
Yeah.
and yeah, like you said, it's funny because I put the thought out. I put the thought out maybe 2 months ago, right? 10K subscribers. I was doing the manifestation practice. 10K subscribers. And I remember at the time just like, yeah, I can see it clearly. I can feel it happening. And then I just, after a few days of practicing that, I just forgot about it. Like the seed going down into the soil. Once the seed's in the soil, you forget about it. You just let it do its thing. And I had my ideas about how I would get 10K subscribers. Like it would be through the SR videos and blah, blah, blah. But then I released a video about me making a barn door. Just made a little like 2-minute video. And it just blew up. Got like, last I checked, it had 1.7 million views. And that's where all the subscribers have been coming from.
Gotcha. I didn't know that.
You know, it's just like, that was my sneak attack. And so the manifestation came true, but it was in a way I didn't expect, which is usually how God works. Like he'll give you a vision.
Absolutely.
And then you think I've got to do X, Y, Z to make it materialize. But then God's just like, no, this is how it's going to happen. Completely unexpected. So that's just another confirmation.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, I know for me, one of the biggest kind of traits or qualities I've picked up from you, or just have seen so much value in you, is consistency, you know? And that's something I'm trying to be better at in my own life. But it's just something that I see as such an issue for guys, especially guys who are dealing with PMO, guys who are just dealing with, any addiction really, but, guys who are just struggling in the mud, it's, consistency is such an issue. And I think, we've seen that in the community with, guys who are kind of in and out, or guys who just, just can't stay committed. They'll be really active for a day or two, or, maybe a week, and then you don't see them again for a couple months. And it's just, what, is there a practice in your life, or is there a lesson that you've learned along the way that has helped you be so consistent? Because that's one thing I gave you, man, is that even throughout the last month or two, all this stuff that's going on, there's, through all the guys that have left, and just some of the, there was just some conflicts that were starting as well, and just all kinds of different things. Through all this stuff that's happening, like, how did you remain so consistent?
I think,
because I'll caveat that with, like, I know for me, I took about a week off from the community during that time because I was just feeling heaviness. I was feeling like, okay, like all of a sudden I put all this responsibility on myself. It's like, okay, like how do I, how do we stop people from leaving? How do we do all, how do we bring more value? And, how do we do this? How do we stop this? Am I even valuable here? You get into all that kind of stuff, like the ego, like, does anybody even appreciate me? Like that kind of thing. And I just really had to just go through all this stuff for about a week and just realize, like, dude, it was just the mind, it's just, it tries to pull us away from things that are good and things that God is trying to put in our path.
Yeah, the consistency, it's like, it's not something I really do consciously anymore. It's, I think there's a couple of factors, but one is that I really don't have anything else to do. I've created my life now where if I wanted to, I could go out and get a just over broke a job. I could go do that. But I've done that enough times now to realize that the cost is greater than the benefit. To the point where it's like I realize the hit that my morale takes, that my energy takes, when I go and work in an environment which is not on my level of resonance, the energy drain is just too great. It's not worth the money. I'd rather have less money and just maintain my energy than go and sell myself for a bite to eat, for a crust of bread. And I think retention, having your balls, builds that in you. It builds that value into you, into your core, where you stop compromising. You stop living by these stories that you have to be a slave just because that's what you've been taught. And you just start saying no to shit that doesn't serve you. And it creates a lot of space in your life. And when you have a lot of space in your life and you've conquered those, well, not conquered, but you've got those major areas under control, like lust, to some extent. You've somewhat tamed that beast where it's not controlling your mind anymore. Then you start to have a lot of space. And when you have a lot of space, you start to gain energy. You start to gain clarity. That's why meditation's so powerful, because you're just creating space in your own mind. And you're coming back to coherence. You're coming back to peace. You're coming back to 0 point. That's where all the power is. I'll tell you a story I heard from David. He was saying when his dad was in business for himself, the times when he was most successful in business was the times when he would just sleep a lot. During the day, he had I think he probably had a bed in his office, and he would just have naps through the day. And if he wasn't sleeping, he was meditating, So when he finally got on a sales call, he was just so zen that the other person just wanted to buy his energy. They didn't really care about the product. They were just like, how do I get what you have? So they'll just buy whatever he was selling. And I realized that is actually the key. The key is in being rested. The key is being like the lion, the 80-20.
Yeah.
The key is actually allowing yourself to be a little more lazy, like probably our ancestors lived for many thousands of years. Hunter-gatherers, even, shepherd people out in the desert. Shepherds weren't running around all day. They were just sitting. Like David was just sitting in the field playing a harp most of the day,
Yeah.
So that when he actually had to be a shepherd, when a lion showed up, he just had so much power accumulated that he would just pull out a sling and sling a rock into its skull, and it was just game over in 3 seconds. So that's how we're meant to operate. And for me, the consistency is coming from just a foundation of cutting all the bullshit out of my life. When there's no bullshit competing with your attention, it's just oh, I guess I'll make a video today. I guess I'll just go to the gym today. It's I'm not really trying to do it. It's just well, what am I going to do? Sit here and masturbate? No, I'm just going to go to the gym. That's the key, man.
Sweet. That helps a lot.
Well, I think we've been going for, I don't know, half an hour, 40 minutes. Is there anything else you want to dive into? Because I'm kind of talked out.
Yeah, I'm pretty good, man. I think that was really the topics I wanted to hit was kind of just, the last little while, the last month or two, and just kind of breakthroughs that have happened, fear, stuff like that. So I think we've hit pretty good. I think we hit a lot more than that. So I think we did pretty good.
Yeah, nice, man. Well,
I love this. I love the idea of the podcast, and I'm excited to see how that grows as well. And waiting for the day when it drops on Spotify and all the other, when it's a big, household name in podcasts.
100%. Yeah, I'm still working out, or I'm still getting clear on what we're going to call it. So if you got any ideas, feel free. Shoot them across.
Okay, we'll do.
Yeah, because I don't think there is a semen retention podcast, so this could be a world first. Definitely
not a big one.
No. And I really truly believe that SR it's going to explode, man. Because how can it not? Just like you say in your
Me
videos,
too.
you tried everything. You tried the religions. You tried all these different experiences. But SR was the first thing that truly made a difference. It's been very, very much the same for me. Like, SR made so much difference compared to everything else I tried. So I think it's a key. And pretty soon, a lot more men are going to get onto that.
Yeah, yeah. I just want to say too, for the guys that are going to listen to this, like, um, the past year, just I was working more or less like a warehouse job, and I really related to what you were saying about how working a job it might not even be hard work, but it's such a drain in so many different ways, And I've noticed the last couple of weeks having so much more energy and so much just more joy, And so I just want to say to the guys out there, I believe that God is really blessing this path right now. If you want to work with men, if you want to work in the SR space and like just dwell there, you know what I'm saying, and help men and help guys who are really down, deep down in the mud, and help guys who've been where you were, I think God is really blessing that right now, and I think He will get you out of whatever job you're in. I think He's going to get you. He'll get you out of whatever you're in right now that you're losing energy, that you're just showing up day to day. There's no spark. There's no purpose. He'll get you out of that, and I think He's really blessing this work right now. So if that helps somebody, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, actually, that brings up a good point. I want to call out, anyone who thinks that making money off SR is somehow wrong, that making money off helping men break the slavery of debauchery, of lust, is somehow wrong to receive money for that. Do you think it's wrong that doctors get paid? Do you think it's wrong that psychiatrists, psychologists get paid? Do you think it's wrong that therapists get paid? These people are providing a service. They're helping people, break out of disease, break out of mental slavery, mental stuckness, traumas. And what we have here is a tool that I believe surpasses all of these medical interventions, all of these, all of these techniques and practices based on outdated models of reality, based on like 18th and 19th century textbooks, bro. This approach that they're using, even pharmaceuticals, it's witchcraft. I'll call it out. It's sorcery. It's black magic. There are elements of it that work, but it's not the true spirit-based intervention that we need. We need a spiritual intervention, not a chemical one. And SR is the key. SR is the key to set the men free. That's a nice slogan. And if the men become free, then the women will, by proxy, by result of that, the women will stop behaving like sluts because the men will stop demanding that they do. So this is really the heart and soul of transformation in the world right now. I truly believe that. So if you want to be a part of that, this is a booming industry. I'll just call it out for what it is. We're right at the beginning of a unicorn. So you can jump on it, or you can watch from the sidelines and then regret it 5 years later that you didn't get involved. You don't have to be involved in our stuff. Start your own. Just help men. Just help men share your journey. Jump on YouTube. Start making videos. If you want to do that with us, we'll pay you a 50% commission for anyone you bring into the community. You can immediately start making money through SR. So convert all of this power into income and have fun with it. I have fun with this. This is fun. This isn't a drag. It's not a drain. I don't have to show up to a gay job. We can just get on here and share our truth and help people. So if you want to be involved, highly recommend you be a part of the community if you want to do that. If you don't, just start your own thing, man. It's all about men getting into action. Use this energy. Rise up. It's time.
I'm fired up, brother. I'm ready to take it on.
Amen. Awesome, bro. Well, thank you so much for jumping on. This was really powerful, and looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, brother. Definitely. Would you be open in the future to doing like having multiple guys on at the same time?
Oh, yeah. For sure.
I'm sure in the future, man, you gotta have a studio and everything,
Oh yeah. I even got my microphone set up today, but I realized that the microphone input for some reason sounds exactly the same as the laptop input. So we'll just keep tweaking and refining. We'll keep improving for sure.
Absolutely. Just don't think about it, you know?
Oh yeah, studio. Yeah, like I can envisage us like Joe Rogan style, just sitting around a table smoking cigars, like 3 or 4 or 5 guys, just doing a tag team.
It.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome, man.
All right, bro. Well, you have a great night.
Brother, you have a great day with the fam. All right.
I shall do. Much love, King. Much love, man. Brothers. Talk soon.
Blessings, bro.